What is that?
A star, perhaps.
Hit the zoom. That's way too close to be a star. Pull back. What the hell is that?
It is a Goa'uld attack vessel.
The Ha'tak-class vessel has been the iconic combat vessel for the Goa'uld for thousands of years. While it has become severely underestimated by the Tari, due in part to a combination of Goa'uld arrogance and Alliance technology, the Ha'tak is a formidable warship that was integral to the subjugation of the Milky Way galaxy. Ha'tak are extremely versatile, having not only powerful weapons and shields, but also massive space for gliders, Elkesh, supplies, and troops. They may serve as command centers, warships, supply ships, carriers, troop transport, or landing craft. Or they may serve all of these roles at once. This has earned them the moniker Mothership. Motherships can operate alone or as part of a fleet. Much of their design is to have them to serve as flying temples. This actually leads me to the first point of contention. You see, the canon of Stargate is very hard to pin down for a variety of reasons. Lack of consistency within the series itself is a big one. But then you had all sorts of tech guides, magazines, encyclopedias written that often caused discourse, giving out information that often seemed to clash with the presented in the series. One of the first points of contention was the listed size of 315 meters in height and roughly 700 meters in diameter. I'm using diameter as the Ha'tak is roughly the shape of an equilateral triangle. More specifically, the measurements given are 700 meters in length and 650 meters in width. Many have taken issue with the size given, saying that it's too small for what we've seen on screen. During the invasion of Earth, a Ha'tak often landed on Cheyenne Mountain, being roughly comparable in size. We've also seen Cronus' Ha'tak touch down on the pyramid. We don't know the size of the pyramid, but if we assume it's the size of the Great Pyramids of Egypt, then the landing platform would be roughly 150 meters in height, and the Ha'tak pyramid being much larger. And speaking of Great Pyramids, let's not forget that Daniel was correct saying they were landing platforms for alien spaceships like the Ha'tak.
Oh my.
Since the officially given measurements are so contentious, I decided to take my own measurements. Combing through the series, I only found one shot that could be used as a good frame of reference. There is a lot of issues with pixel scaling, but I use this as a generalization of how big it is. From this shot, the window is bigger than a human. If I said the window was 3 meters tall, then the Ha'tak comes out at around 300 meters in height and 700 meters in diameter, which actually lines up with the given measurements. You might point out that the canon says that it's 315 meters in height. But remember, I'm looking at this from a higher angle, which will shorten it from my perspective. For reference on how big that is, the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is roughly 333 meters in length. And this is another point of contention. Expanded Materials says that it can carry 700,000 tons of cargo and over 2,000 troops. Compare that to the Nimitz-class carrier, which can carry 91,000 tons of cargo and roughly 5,000 personnel. Now, to be fair, it only says over 2,000, which is very vague. 10,000 is also over 2,000, but so is 10 million. We don't know for certain how many troops can be carried, we just know it's a lot. The interior of the ship also varies by design. Sometimes the design is more pragmatic, with simplistic hallways and dedicated computers. Other, more boastful Goa'uld will have their walls adorned with hieroglyphics and have the doors be controlled by them. Great Pyramids are often built as landing pads for these ships. The number of sides on the pyramid does not truly matter. As long as the structure is pyramidal or even conical shaped, the Ha'tak can land on it. Even the mountaintop will do. The bottom of the Ha'tak is indented, allowing for the point of the cone to comfortably fit into it. Actually, this is another point of contention, as some have claimed that 3-sided pyramid were made for the Ha'tak, while 4-sided pyramid were made for the Cheops-class warship. The issue is that we've never seen any 3-sided pyramids in Stargate. More than that, we've seen Ha'tak land on four-sided and even no-sided pyramids. I mean, Cheyenne Mountain doesn't exactly qualify as a pyramid. Though it does appear that in this shot, they cheated and turned the pyramid into a right triangle. The main structure of the Ha'tak is the gold pyramid in the center. Surrounding the pyramid is a large black triangular frame. On each side of the triangle are two pylons that extend out. The Ha'tak or bridge is located in the pyramid. Interestingly, even though the Ha'tak designates the front of the ship, it doesn't operate that way. The ship is able to fly in any direction, regardless if the front is facing it. Something you need to understand about the Ha'tak is that they are not standardized vessels. While their overall design is similar to each other, the Ha'tak are rarely equal to one another. Some Goa'uld are more tech-savvy than others, creating more and more powerful weapons or conquering new people for their weapons. When a Goa'uld falls, the army is absorbed into the victors. Their technology is modified, assuming that the loser was more advanced. The variety is best seen on the Ha'tak or bridge of the ship. During Apophis's attack on Earth, his Ha'tak was very simplistic. It was controlled by a single console, manned by the leading Goa'uld themselves, that being Apophis and Chlorel.
You will get to see your home one last time before you and everyone on your planet are destroyed, and your kind will disturb the Goa'uld no more.
Cronus' Ha'tak had a command chair and two operating stations, one to fly the ship and a weapons console. Anubis' Ha'tak had a similar layout. Baal's Ha'tak had a command chair, but there were three consoles. We see the Ha'tak of the Free Jaffa have different setups as well. The one flown by Teal'c and Bra'tac during the Battle of Dakara had a command chair as well as two consoles in front of it, not even a dedicated weapons console. Other notable locations include the engine room, the computer core, glider bays, holding cells, cargo bays, and crew quarters. Not much is known about the ship's power systems, only that it likely runs on Naquadah, which is pretty much what everything in the Milky Way runs on. If you want to commandeer a Ha'tak, you'll need to be intimately familiar with crystal technology. Information on the ship's computers are stored in the computer core on various crystal drives. Then there's the engine room. If you're suffering from any sort of technical issue, then you solve it down at the engine room. If your ship is damaged, then dealing with the crystals in the engine room is your only solution. How this works isn't specified, but often if something was permanently broken or just temporarily broken was determined if the crystal fort was broken. If I had to render a guess, most Ha'tak critical systems are located near the core of the ship, where they can't be singled out or targeted. The ship systems will have multiple redundancies in the event the ship is damaged. In the event one is destroyed, you can reroute power. And this isn't the same as rerouting power from the bridge where you pump more energy in one system at the expense of another. Rather, you are rewiring the system itself around the damaged areas, almost like a pipe puzzle. The sublight engines of the Ha'tak are a form of inertial propulsion, and this is actually more than just technobabble. Inertial propulsion is a theoretical form of propulsion that moves a target by manipulation of inertial forces. Which I know is obvious, it's in the name, water is what and all that. The end goal of inertial propulsion is to move something without interacting with the outside environment. If you're in a sealed container, you can move the container by drop-kicking the wall, and the physics savvy may point out how, because of Newton's third law, this wouldn't really get you anywhere, and hence why inertial propulsion remains in the realm of theory without even a working prototype. You may have seen a video of a person tossing a brick into a dryer, which demonstrates better inertial propulsion, albeit the useless kind. The heavy weight of the brick is thrown outward due to centripetal motion, which then pushes the entire dryer, causing it to move, well, everywhere. The machine is moving of its own internal systems, with no external factors. But this method is currently useless, as there is no way to keep the object intact, let alone control where it goes. The Goa'uld would likely have some technology that warps the fabric of space-time to achieve their propulsion. The exact speeds are never stated, but we do have multiple deductions. When the Tok'ra evacuated Vorash with the intent of blowing up its sun, they went from Vorash to the sun in only a few minutes.
The timing has to be precise. Once we're close enough to the sun, we'll slow to 5% light speed and release the gate.
When they went back to pick up O'Neill, they also took only a few minutes. We do not know the layout of the Vorash system, but if we compare it to Earth, even Mercury needs several minutes for light to reach it. During Apophyse's attack on Earth, they exited hyperspace around Saturn, then traveled by sublight the rest of the way. Now, this is one of the aforementioned discrepancies in the writing. The way the episode is set up, it should have only taken a few minutes to reach Earth. But it would take nearly an hour for light to reach Earth from Saturn, thus violating the concept of a sub-light engine. Still, it is possible it took a few hours. There aren't exactly chairs, which meant O'Neill and Teal'c spent the entire time staring out the window. The only things known is that Carter set the C4 for 24 hours, and that the Ha'tak spent 18 hours in orbit. But no matter how you cut it, the sublight engines can take it well over a quarter the speed of light. After that, how much more is up for debate. Along with the sublight, it has a hyperdrive, which lets it travel across the galaxy. Teal'c mistakenly believed the ship to be limited to 10 times the speed of light. I've seen many theories on why this is. Some people theorize the Ha'tak had been upgraded by this point. Others say it's just inconsistent writing. However, I have my own theory. Remember that the Jaffa are not an advanced civilization. The Goa'uld are, but the Jaffa are not. If I use medieval knights to fight in a modern war, I load them onto ships, give them machine guns, order them to charge at my enemies. They may know that pulling the trigger equals dead men. They may know how to control my ship, but without in-depth knowledge, speeds such as 30 knots don't mean much of anything to them. Teal'c may have heard the phrase 10 times the speed of light, but it wasn't until the 19th century that the actual speed of light was measured. Meaning terms like light speed means little to Teal'c, who doesn't have a grasp of the scope of the universe. Once again, there are no solid numbers, but I've seen fan estimates of tens of thousands times the speed of light.
What? We knew the Goa'uld were coming for 6 months, but I couldn't think of a way to stop them. You did.
While it is possible this was not deep space detection but advanced knowledge, if we were to assume that they were traveling from one end of the Milky Way to the other, their hyperdrives would need to be going at 600,000 times the speed of light. The best indicator is perhaps an exodus, when a supernova caused the hyperdrive window to launch them over 400 million light years. Jacob estimated that it would take roughly 125 years to get back to where they were. Now, these numbers are likely a lot of rounding, but if we take them at face value, then the Ha'tak would have to be traveling at over 3 million times the speed of light. At such speeds, it would take several weeks to travel across the galaxy, which lines up with many of the scenarios, putting the ships out at several days away. Which is likely why they use the Stargate so heavily. Travel of a few seconds versus the travel of several weeks. The offensive and defensive capabilities of the Ha'tak have also been hotly debated. Some numbers are given, as well as a few demonstrations, but many demonstrations produce laughable results. But is this their true strength, or just an issue with the writing? Something Star Wars is intimately familiar with.
We have incoming fire.
Kanan, find cover now!
Come on.
Another issue is that infamous Goa'uld arrogance could be to blame. It's hard to say. I'm grouping weapons and shields together as, since the Ha'tak regularly battle each other, one is tied to the other. Some of the smaller explosions can be seen in episodes like Warrior, Pretense, Between Two Fires, and The Lost City. These explosions are no bigger than a few dozen kilograms of TNT. During an invasion of Earth in an alternate universe, Dr. Carter reported on the explosions caused by their orbital bombardment.
The blasts on the East Coast were the equivalent of 200 megaton nuclear warheads.
In descent, a Ha'tak fell from high orbit to Earth's surface. Don't mistake it crashing into the water as cushioning its blow. At high enough velocities, the surface tension will make crashing into water as bad as crashing into concrete. But with shields up, it survived the impact, and in one piece. During Apophysis' attack on Earth, the US military launched 2 Minuteman ballistic missiles with Mark 12A nuclear warheads enhanced with Naquadah at each ship. Each nuke now had yields in excess of 1 gigaton each. The attack did not work. Both nukes hit the shield and the ships experienced little more than a rumble.
Whoa, what was that?
Something may have impacted the shield.
And for reference, this is a Ha'tak getting shot by other ships.
Shields are holding. The ship remains undamaged.
They fired on us. Shield strength is down 60%. How's that possible?
What the hell did they hit us with?
The Tari would eventually develop 303 and its successor, the 304, all of them armed with Naquadah-enhanced nuclear weapons. Their yields are never stated, but in Failsafe, which takes place before the creation of the ships,
Packs 1,200 Naquadah-enhanced megatons.
That's a lot?
This is the most powerful warhead ever created, Daniel. It's the equivalent of 1 billion tons of TNT.
so I think it's a fair assessment to say that their NAC nukes would be still producing yields of over 1 gigaton apiece. Despite this, neither the 303 nor the 304 have been particularly successful against the Ha'tak. During the Aleutian Alliance attack on Icarus, the Hammond was the only ship in defense of the planet. According to the books, its Asgard beam weapon, we'll get to that later, was damaged, leaving it only with its railguns and nukes. It was a 3-on-1 battle, and after almost 5 minutes, neither side had been destroyed. Then there's the X-301.
Major, are you suggesting a slammer missile would be capable of taking out a Gua'ul mothership?
If it's armed with an Naquadah-enhanced warhead modified with a shield frequency modulator, yes sir.
So that the missile could go through the shield rather than have the nuke be detonated outside of it. Perhaps one of its most impressive feats was hiding the corona of a blue giant. The thing about the corona is that, ironically, it is the third hottest part of a star, even hotter than the surface, the consecutive layer. The parts that exceed it in temperature are the radiative layer and the core, the 2 layers below the surface. The 2 innermost layers. Ha'tak could park in the corona for almost an hour without shields, 9 to 10 hours with it. And this is where many of the disagreements arise. People have calculated the energy of sitting in the corona and have concluded you need to be able to withstand multi-teratons of TNT. We at the very least know the Ha'tak can wipe out all life on a planet.
Yep.
You ever seen anything like this before?
We must return to Earth as quickly as possible.
Why? What is that?
It is the symbol of Koroshnai. It is for any Goa'uld or Jaffa who may pass through the gate. Loosely translated, it means turn back.
Does it elaborate?
It is placed on worlds Goa'uld destroyers have wiped out and left contaminated. This planet's entire surface will be, in your terms, radioactive. No one will be left alive. This place is not safe.
Tilk's description is very similar to nuclear winter. The expanded material doesn't give solid numbers, but rather impressive descriptions. According to Living Gods, Stargate System Lords, Anubis continued bombing Talana for days. He targeted geological hotspots like fault lines, causing earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and leveling mountains. The soot and debris thrown into the atmosphere blocked the sun, and plant and animal life quickly began to die. The weather was permanently altered, the surviving Tolans were reduced to hunter-gatherer societies surviving off an inhospitable landscape. And that was from one Ha'tak. There are some other instances we can analyze, though they are also incredibly vague. During Apophysis' attack on Earth, he brought his own Stargate. When SG-1 gated aboard, they placed C4 in as many areas as possible that could create secondary explosions, including the Stargate, in the hopes the Naquadah would amplify the blast. Now, considering Earth never got their hands on a third Stargate that fell from the sky, we can assume the Stargate was destroyed. When Anubis attempted to destroy Earth using the Stargate, Carter predicted the blast to be 2 to 3 gigatons. Despite this, they couldn't just bring Chlorel's Ha'tak close and call it a day. They had to lower the shields on Apophis' ship so that it wouldn't be protected from the explosion. And during the first attempt at an Ori invasion, the Ori created a shield in an attempt to collapse a planet into a black hole. But they couldn't project enough power through the gate, so they had the shield be powered by the weapons fire of the Jaffa and the Tari.
We have in our possession a Mark IX Naquadria enhanced nuclear warhead, which was designed solely for the purpose of vaporizing Stargates and anything else in a 100-mile radius. If you attempt to disable this warhead, physically, electronically, or otherwise, it will result in an immediate detonation. Now, we have a number of these god-awful things at our disposal, and we will not hesitate to use them if necessary. If you do not disengage the Stargate within 30 of our Earth minutes, we will shut down the gate for you.
Nuclear fire burns hotter than the sun, so hot that matter is torn apart on a subatomic level. It's vaporized. The explosion was so big they expected a dangerous blast wave reaching into high orbit.
Shields to maximum. Garrick, I suggest you give the same order aboard your ships. There will be a blast wave.
Jaffa! 5 seconds.
How high orbit is will depend on the planet, but if we take Earth as a baseline, then the shockwave was expected to travel more than 65,000 kilometers. People I asked have said that you need a yield of several teratons to do that. Okay, what about the fireball? You need an explosion in excess of 2,000 gigatons to produce a fireball of 100 miles in radius, or 2 teratons. This bomb provided 70% of the shield's power. Ground weapons provided a significant amount, and the ship's weapons provided the rest. It's unreasonable to say that a Ha'tak can match a Mark IX blow for blow, but it has to be some significant fraction, otherwise they'd never be able to charge the shields simply because their weapons aren't strong enough. Even if we assume the Ha'tak accounted for only 10% of the needed energy across 50 bolts, then each bolt would be packing a punch of around 5 gigatons apiece. So, where does this leave us? Even in the early days of the Tari, they consistently produced nuclear bombs in excess of 1 gigaton and could never destroy a Ha'tak. At the very least, I think it's fair to say Ha'tak cannons can pack at least several gigatons, tens of gigatons of force per bolt. The riding around the Ha'tak is oddly consistent in this, despite the lack of real numbers. We know that as little as a single Ha'tak could conquer all of Earth. It is estimated the total explosive yield of all nuclear bombs in existence is around 4,000 megatons, or 4 gigatons. Despite this, Earth couldn't just nuke the ships out of orbit. Though this then leaves a question of the smaller explosions. Actually, there are reasonable explanations for just about every instance. The Goa'uld are scavengers, conquerors, slavers. Loss of life is nothing compared to the gain of territory and technology. And of course, if they tread lightly, they get more slaves and worshippers. In Pretense in Between Two Fires, mass destruction will also destroy Tolan technology, and the Goa'uld are scavengers. That is technology they want. Not to mention Pretense, the VIP Chloro was still on the ground. And in the Lost City, an explosion too powerful would destroy the ancient weapon Anubis himself wants. Not just the weapon. At the time, both Anubis and SG-1 thought it was the Lost City underneath the ice of Antarctica. In the Sentinel, it was the same. Svarog didn't want to exterminate the Latonans, and for the same reasons, technology and slaves. In Warrior, the Ha'tak belonged to Lord Yu, who had little interest in destroying the Jaffa rebellion. Not only that, he even gave Tilka a chance to return and warn everyone of Katano's treachery and let them escape. The exact number and placement of the cannons is also up for debate. According to DVD Collection 29, it has 60 staff cannons in total placed on the black frame, situated so that every angle has equal coverage of fire. You won't be facing all 60 at the same time, but you'll always be facing roughly the same number, no matter where you are. I say up for debate, as we can never clearly see the cannons. In later seasons, we get a clearer look of where the staff bolts come from. They come from the extensions on each side of the triangle, and there are 2 on the triangle tips. In Exodus, it appears that there are also cannons where the extensions reach out from the main triangle as well. And that's just on one side. Double that for the top, and that's 36 SAF cannons we can account for. I have seen smaller ships such as Elkesh, gliders, and Ha'tak survive shots from the Ha'tak vessels. The leading theory I've seen is that these are smaller point defense cannons located on the pyramid itself, rather than the big anti-ship cannons on the frame. And they also speculate that the smaller explosions that we see were the result of the point defense cannons. But as I've mentioned, this is speculation. I've also seen some people list Naquadah-enhanced nuclear bombs amongst the Ha'tak's weapons. However, we have yet to see them actually use these in combat. We've never seen missiles or explosive projectiles of any sort. More than likely, these are not used in space combat, but on occasion used in ground warfare. Along with the weapons, Ha'tak come with a number of auxiliary systems. It has multiple ring transporters so things can easily come on and off board. To ring aboard, the ship need only calibrate its systems so that the ring transport will match the frequency of its shields, allowing the matter stream to pass through. It also has some of the obvious, such as inertial dampeners, so the crew are protected from the extreme acceleration and deceleration, life support, communication, self-destruct, as well as long-range and short-range sensors and targeting computers. With these systems, Ha'tak can fire upon targets from tens of thousands of kilometers around geosynchronous orbit to high orbit. Motherships were able to hit Apophysis glider near the surface of a planet from high orbit. These sensors can pick up enemy vessels in hyperspace, even when they are days away. Another example of lack of uniformity is the ship's internal security. Some ships have an internal life science detector to detect intruders, but others do not. The Ha'tak also carries a multitude of gliders. Expanded Material says that they can carry 12 wings of death gliders. This is yet another example of the beta cannon. It's also very vague. The number of planes in a wing depends on which nation you're asking, and it's not always a solid number. The USAF usually have a wing be comprised of 3 to 4 squadrons, with anywhere from 10 to 25 aircraft per squadron. And that number changes when you change militaries. The result is that a wing can have anywhere from 25 to 100 planes, and hence you see why this is so contentious, as with 12 wings, you're looking at anywhere from 300 to 1200 gliders. This gets even more contentious as expanded materials say that can also carry 3 wings of Elkesh, which would be 75 to 300 Elkesh. It's not even a matter of numbers at this time. We've never seen Elkesh leave a Ha'tak. We've never even seen Elkesh in a Ha'tak. While they do often accompany the Ha'tak, they usually travel alongside in hyperspace as opposed to be deployed out of the hangar bays. Alright, so your ship is about to engage in battle with the Ha'tak. What are the best ways to increase your chances of victory? Obviously, if your weapons and technology are overwhelming, you can steamroll the competition. Unfortunately for the Goa'uld, we've seen multiple races with far superior technology, such as the Asgard, Ancients, and Ori. Even though we've never technically seen the Asgard beam weaponry destroy a mothership, we can deduce, as we've seen it take out significantly more powerful ships like Ori motherships. The Asgard and Ori beam weapons tear through Ha'tak's shields, the latter being able to destroy a Ha'tak in one shot. Even the Ori cannons are able to destroy a Ha'tak. It's hard to say just how powerful said cannons are because they require several volleys, but it doesn't matter when the Ha'tak can't penetrate Ori shields. Then you have ancient drone weapons, which don't even damage the shields, they just go through them. However, let's say your vessel doesn't have the firepower to overwhelm a Ha'tak. What then? A Ha'tak's shields are its primary form of defense. If you can find a way around them, then you have a good chance of survival. Generally, when shields fall, destruction is imminent.
Shield failure is imminent.
Damn you, Cam Mitchell.
If a Ha'tak manages to survive even without its shields, it's a matter of size as opposed to armor on its hull. Not only that, then your ship is also lacking some serious punch. Land direct hits to the hull and you'll likely do some serious damage as vital systems are now exposed. Advanced intel is always your best option. If you know when and where the Ha'tak will appear, you might be able to ambush them. While not explicitly stated for the Ha'tak, It can be presumed that they cannot use shields and weapons in hyperspace, as this seems to be the rule for Stargate. Meaning, if you know where to expect ships, you can open fire the moment a hyperspace window opens. However, it's common for ships to exit hyperspace far away from the staging area, then traveling the rest of the way via sublight. Still, there's more than one way to stage an ambush. Hide your ship behind a celestial body such as a planet or a star. Stick close, but stay behind so that the Ha'tak will not detect you after coming out of hyperspace.
If we move around behind the sun, the fleet won't spot us.
In the universe of Stargate, shields are not raised by default. They are kept down and only raised when needed, so you can ambush them, crippling them if not outright destroying them before they can react. You can also hide by entering the corona of certain stars. The intense heat and radiation will blind the enemy sensors. Before I go over the weak points of a Ha'tak, I should go over Naquadah. Naquadah is the fuel source of the Milky Way galaxy, especially the Goa'uld Empire. It's the source of power for the shields and weapons. Even a single microscopic particle can create an explosion that can take out an entire room.
One side of the object is made up of a combination of iron and potassium. The other side is made up of the element that makes up the Stargate.
What?
I'm assuming it's the Naquadah that was in her blood. Somehow the object is collecting it.
Now, potassium can be one of the most volatile alkali metals on Earth. Combined with even a small concentration of Naquadah and...
That doesn't sound very good.
The room you're looking at is in the sub-basement floor of this complex. It's lead sealed. Let's see what happens when we put the two objects together.
Where are the samples?
I'm only using a microscopic particle of each.
The reading's off the scale. Gamma and particle radiation.
Are we safe?
Yeah, but we have a big problem.
Well, if two microscopic particles could cause that...
Then the object inside Cassandra could cause a nuclear reaction 1,000,000 times bigger.
It's incredibly reactive and used to enhance the power of weapons, especially nuclear weapons. We want to set off the Naquadah in the ship, any that we can find, which not only might take them out of action, but with any luck will set off the Naquadah. You'll also want to target the glider base since the death gliders are also powered by Naquadah. At worst, you'll put the bays out of commission so they can't launch gliders against you, and at best you cause a series of secondary explosions that can damage the ship from the inside. If you can figure out the location of the cargo bay, that is also a prime target, as no doubt the Goa'uld will have stockpiles of weapons, all powered by Naquadah.
You were hoping for a chain reaction with the Naquadah in the soil. Sir, that entire planet could be destroyed.
These rules become especially important if you're flying a small ship with less powerful weapons. Since you can't take out the ship through sheer might, you want to hit the vital system. Take your ship in as close as possible so that the cannons will have a harder time hitting you. This is actually a real tactic known as ground hugging, getting close as possible to the ground to avoid detection and anti-air weapons. However, if the shields are up, you're probably going to have to slug it out. As mentioned, Ha'tak have a long history of shrugging off single-digit gigatons, so you'll want to make sure your ship can output far more than that. But there are a few ways that you might still be able to bypass the shields. Shields in the Stargate universe have unique frequencies. If you know the shield frequency of a ship, you can bypass its shields entirely. Normally, you only know the frequency of your own ship, so your fighters can get in and out without issue. And you can beam stuff on and off your own ship, but you can't do the same with an enemy ship. If you have a way to figure out the Ha'tak's shield frequency, you can deliver weapons right through their shields. More than that, the ship would be open for all sorts of beaming, whether that be from ring transport or Asgard beaming. Beam nuclear warheads into the vessel and watch it go up. Another possible way to bypass the shields is with a hyperdrive. This was a maneuver performed against Anubis' mothership, and the Ha'tak should be vulnerable to the same thing. Use a very brief hyperspace jump to get under the shields and target the hull. However, the calculations will have to be extraordinarily precise. It was difficult even on Anubis' mothership, and the Ha'tak is much smaller, and its shields closer to the hull. But what if none of those are available to you? If at all possible, try having your forces be scattered into multiple smaller units. As far as we know, there are no automated weapons. While there is a targeting computer, the point defense all falls onto whoever is manning the station and his ability to aim. In the past, they've struggled when dealing with small maneuverable targets, likely the limitation of the frail organic mind. Of course, this assumes that your smaller units still wield the appropriate firepower. We see this arise with the Tolans. A single ion cannon was one thing, but if the Goa'uld destroy one, the others would return fire, and we see that there are a lot of them on the planet. The ship couldn't target them all at once, so the ground forces had to paint them for the ship to destroy them all simultaneously. Oftentimes when a Ha'tak wants to hit a small maneuverable target, they often dispatch gliders to do it for them. You may ask how electronic warfare fares. Neither the Tari nor the Asgard, not even the Replicators, have performed electronic warfare against the Ha'tak, which is a bit surprising for the last one, since that's literally what they're all about. Nuclear weapons produce EM when they detonate. The ones used against Apophis actually damaged Earth's communications, but Apophis' ship felt nothing. I think it's fair to say EM will also do nothing. Something else that will be useless is Earth's current stealth technology. Their sensors are not radar. You need a cloaking device to hide from a Ha'tak. This is also where the previously mentioned lack of uniformity comes in. Depending on the Goa'uld you're facing, some Ha'tak come with cloaking devices of their own, or even sensors that can detect cloaked ships. If the Ha'tak is cloaked, it cannot use its shields nor its weapons, meaning if you keep a sharp eye out, you can possibly damage a Ha'tak if not destroy it when it decloaks. There are also ways to destroy it from the inside. Of course, you need to know your way around, and a way to get people inside. But let's say you already have a way to achieve that. First, you want to figure out the ship's internal security systems. Not all Ha'tak have them. If they don't, you can roam around freely. But some have internal life sign detectors, which then direct the crew to swarm you. The ship also doesn't have any dedicated internal weapons. You don't have to worry about turning down the hall and coming face to face with a ceiling-mounted turret. But savvy commanders can come up with creative ideas. The ship still has plenty of bulkhead doors which can trap you. In one instance, Osiris diverted coolant from the hyperdrive. There is also a way around the life sense detector, though. An injectable radioactive isotope can hide you from internal life sense detectors, though this only lasts until the isotope wears off. But in the meantime, now's your chance to do as much damage as possible. Because of the ship's maneuvering and reliance on sublight, if you destroy the sublight around a planet and destroy the shields, it will crash into the surface and be destroyed. Also, remember my points about Naquadah. Plant explosives at any place with stores of Naquadah, which will set them off. With these in mind, you should be better equipped to engage in battle with the mothership. Good luck out there.